There are hundreds of islands along Scotland's west coast, each one its own little world, connected to the neighbours by a great highway, the Atlantic Ocean.
I'm travelling up the west coast, far into the North Atlantic, further than we've ever been before, beyond our shores to foreign islands, in search of a way of life we've all but lost.
My objective, the Faroe Islands, where, for over 1,000 years, the descendants of Viking settlers have struggled to survive and thrive. I'll explore the forgotten bond between Britain and the Faroes. Island people united by war and love.
People remember what went on here. They remember the kindness of the soldiers.
On my island hopping adventure northwards, I'm joined by my fellow coasters. On Skye, Alice Roberts discovers a remarkable use for seaweed.
This is brown gold.
Newcomer to coast, Kate Rue, is on the hunt for a tiny creature that eats whale bones.
It is what some people call a bone-eating snotflower.
And Nick Crane attempts to measure the length of the very wiggly British coastline.
91, 92.
Are you in the home straight now?
I'm concentrating. 94.
This is our coast.
And England into Scotland and beyond. In fact, all the way up to the Faroe Islands, high in the wild Atlantic. But we're starting our adventure at Loch Linnhe, just east of the island of Mull. The entrance to the loch is guarded by Glen Sanda Castle, once home to the MacLean clan, descendants of the Vikings who roamed these waterways.
1,000 years ago, the islands of the west coast were ruled by Vikings, more Norwegian than Scottish. In fact, the name of this place, Glen Sanda, is Old Norse, and it means the glen of the sandy river.
But it's not the sand that's drawn me here. It's the rock.
This tanker is about to be loaded with 85,000 tonnes of granite from Europe's biggest super quarry. It's the rock that will make the roads of Britain roll. It's quite terrifying, actually. Just the sheer mass of it. It's just like steel cliff.
Glen Sanda Quarry sits at the mouth of the Great Glen Fault, an area rich in granite. Although the quarry's on the mainland, it might as well be an island. You can't get here by road, because there aren't any. But who needs roads when you have the sea, and water deep enough for huge ships? Europe's biggest super quarry relies on the coast. Rock and machinery all come and go by sea. A challenge for Deputy Manager David Lamb.
David.
Hello, Neil. Welcome to Glen Sanda.
Thank
Nice
you.
to meet you.
That was all very exciting with the boat.
It certainly was,
I
wasn't
was
it?
most impressed.
Yeah.
So where does it all happen?
It all starts at the top of the hill, basically at the top of the mountain.
It's 2,000 feet from sea level to summit. But suddenly, I get the full picture.
Well, from here you really do get a sense of super quarry.
You certainly do. It's a big hole, isn't it?
How much of the mountain have you already taken away?
Out of this area, we've already taken 100 million tonnes.
And how much remains to be taken?
There's still almost 800 million tonnes left to go.
Right, so you're kind of scratching the surface at the
It's
moment.
a big scratch, but it's only a scratch so far.
Can we go and blow things up?
We certainly can, Neil. Come on.
100 million tonnes of rock extracted in 20 years. Now, with 18 tonnes of explosive primed, I'm about to see how they do it.
That's fantastic.
It's pretty impressive, isn't it?
Can we do that again? Right now?
If you're happy to wait another few days, yes.
Wow. It's the way it's just a slow motion
Takes out, isn't it? Yeah.
ripple.
Yeah.
where does all this material go? I mean, who uses it?
An awful lot of the rock goes into road building, into the construction industry, sub-bases for roads, your motorways. Almost all the rock for the English side of the Channel Tunnel was supplied from Glen Sanda.
The granite here is hard enough to withstand the pounding of trucks and trains under our roads and railways. But what's really special is this quarry's coastal location. The rock's crushed, graded and washed before it even gets to the quayside. There, it's loaded straight onto huge ships to be sent anywhere in the world. The rock might not stay around long, but the workers can sometimes live here for weeks on end. At least they've got some big toys to play with.
It's like Jurassic Park in here. Do you like it here?
Yes, very nice.
Why? Is it the big toys?
Big toys.
Big toys. And the views on a good day.
The views on a good day are nice.
How much do you pay for a set of tyres on there?
8,000 a tyre.
So 32,000 for 4 tyres. So it's not the sort of vehicle you'd keep for a hobby, is it?
No.
Kind of feels like the Wild West out here. It's like frontier town.
You get used to it. You get used to it.
Hard-working lifestyles are nothing new on the West Coast, but this amount of machinery is new. It's on a whole different scale. New connections to the wider world are changing.
These places in the UK! Woohoo! I'm Helen Thompson, I'm from Tyree. I'm a professional kite surfer. I've been windsurfing since I was 8, and I thought that flying about in the air looked much more fun, so I took up kite surfing. Tyree is probably one of the best venues to kite surf in the world. We're very exposed to the wind, so we have very good wind statistics all year round. We also are positioned very nicely in the Gulf Stream, so we get some very nice balmy weather in the summer. The beaches are absolutely stunning on Tyree. You can see all the basking sharks and the whales and dolphins that visit. It's basically a kite surfer's dream. So this is a basic guide to kite surfing. You need 6 things. You need a board, you need a kite, a pump for the kite, a harness, a bar, and a warm wetsuit. Kitesurfing can be quite difficult to learn. It's very much mind over matter and keeping on with it. The most difficult part is getting up on the board. It's always a sticking point. But if you just keep at it and learn to dive the kite a little bit harder and be a bit braver, then you'll get up and riding quite quickly. Woo! Woohoo! Oh, I nearly didn't get around there. After a long day kitesurfing on Tyree, we like to relax and have a nice barbecue at the beach, bonfire with friends. It's just always such amazing sunsets and big skies and just, oh, it's absolutely beautiful.
The waters of the Inner Hebrides aren't only a kite surfer's paradise. They're also teeming with wildlife, from the smallest to the biggest creatures. Whales roam these seas close to the islands. Tobermory is the embarkation point for many a whale watching trip. But wild swimmer Kate Rue is hitching a ride on an expedition like no other.
I've always loved the idea that I might be swimming close to a whale in open water, and I'm keen to find out more about their remarkable lives. So it's wonderful to be here to join this expedition to explore one of their most mysterious secrets. What happens to whales when they die? Whales of all shapes and sizes swim between the islands off the west coast of Scotland. These waters are a whale superhighway, a migration route spanning the world's oceans. They're out there all right, just not that easy to spot. Very nice to meet you.
Yeah, very nice to meet you too.
Hello. But today I'm meeting marine biologists Adrian Glover and Kim Last.
Oh, welcome aboard.
Thanks very much. They know exactly where one whale is, or part of it anyway. We're heading 15 miles out to sea to recover some whale bones they placed on the seabed 15 months ago, part of an extraordinary experiment.
It's something which is very new, really. Just in the last few years we've started to understand what animals would eat a whale, and in particular whale bones, which is really what this experiment is all about.
When whales die, they fall to the bottom of the ocean, becoming a hearty meal for sea life that strips the flesh from the bones. Once the flesh is completely eaten, you'd think the story would all be over, but it's not. The whale skeleton also provides a whole host of animals with a rich source of food. And it's one of these bone-eating creatures that Adrian's particularly interested in.
Well, we're hoping to find some of these strange animals we call ossidacs, which I have a picture of one here, dissected out of a whale bone. It is what some people call a bone-eating snotflower. Rather peculiar name.
I've got to say, it's beautiful looking. When you told me that we were looking for a bone-eating snotflower, I wasn't expecting anything as pretty as this.
Yeah, I think maybe we gave it the wrong name. I mean, it's a bit of a misnomer. It's actually a worm. It's actually a polychaete worm. It's highly adapted to living on this weird environment. So these flowers that you see, the red flowers, are actually there to get oxygen into this weird structure you see at the base, which is actually a root, which is inside the whalebone.
Will we actually see any of these with the naked eye? Are we going to be seeing something?
They stick out a sort of centimetre or so out of the whalebone.
What perplexes scientists is how the tiny bone-eating snotflowers travel the ocean seeking whalebones to feed on. Adrian has a theory that they hop from whalebone to whalebone.
These things are concentrated along certain areas, they can use them as sort of stepping stones in the deep. So putting down this experiment, even though it's really just quite a small experiment that we're looking at today, is really important in looking at the whole dispersal of deep sea organisms.
For over a year, 50 metres down in the cold, dark Atlantic, the whalebone has been waiting. The team are hoping exotic bone-eating creatures have moved in. Only now will the scientists find out if it's all been worth it. But there's a problem. The whalebone should be attached to a large mooring buoy, but it's nowhere to be seen. No buoy means no bone. Over a year's work could be lost.
We've had a lot of storms, or maybe a trawler's come through and picked it up and dragged it away. So we're a little bit on tenterhooks at the moment. Working at sea is very unpredictable.
Their only hope is to spot the much smaller backup buoy or pellet. But there's little hope of seeing it until the tide turns.
What happens is the current actually drags them underwater, so they may just pop up when the tide goes slack.
After a nail-biting wait, the pellet finally reveals itself. Our bone might still be recovered.
Whenever you bring up something in the deep ocean, you always find interesting things. So we're guaranteed interesting things.
I think that's one of the exciting things about this science. You never know what you're going to get. There, it's there, yes. It's there. That's it. Oh. There's the bone.
They haven't fallen off.
They haven't fallen off. There's one large vertebrae and we've got a few smaller ones.
Fin whale vertebrae. Minke whale next to it, you see.
That's right.
So it's like a sweet assortment.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Kim and Adrian are quick off the mark to get to their bone. And they certainly seem excited about something.
We've got bacterial maps. There's the white stuff there. We've got gastropods. We've got bryozoans. We've got nudibranchs, sea slugs. We've got mollusks.
Have you found any snotflowers?
No snotflowers yet. We found quite a few interesting animals, though. A little something that we've been picking out. So this is
Wow, look at that, it's a little mini lobster.
Squat lobsters. We have sea urchins.
But you're missing out this guy. I mean, what's this strange creature in the middle?
Little spider crab. All of these animals are things which live on sort of hard substrates or hard things in the marine environment. So we've actually got quite a lot of organisms here, able to use the whalebone as if it was a kind of a reef, really. I mean, no one's done this experiment, so no one knows. So whatever we get is interesting.
Even though I haven't seen any bone-eating snotflowers today, my eyes have been opened to a new world. That something as barren-looking as a whale skeleton is actually an island home to a whole community of extraordinary creatures. Just off our coast, deep on the seabed, there's a delicate ecosystem at work that we know so little about.
On their restless journey through the oceans, whales navigate their way past these islands. But I can't resist a stop at Canna. I'm always captivated by these clumps of rock and grass that seem to defy the surrounding sea.
Each of these islands is unique, its own little world, a miniature ecosystem where people, plants and animals have to learn to live together. But things haven't always gone smoothly.
The sea eagles, which used to soar high above these cliffs, were hunted to extinction. By 1918, there wasn't a sea eagle to be seen on Canna. Since then, many people have left too. There's only about 20 full-time residents now. But the sea eagles have been brought back. It's Abby Patterson's job to watch over them.
Canna's a good place because it's a very wild and remote island. There's plenty of food here, plenty of rabbits for the eagles to actually feed on. So, and it's also a place that isn't disturbed very much. Very few people come to this corner of the island. So the birds are left alone, and that's really what they need. No disturbance and plenty of food.
The sea eagles may feel at home on Canna, but they had to be reintroduced from Norway. Back in 1975, RSPB volunteers were scaling Norway's mountains. As the eagles were doing well there, it was safe to remove a number of the enormous chicks. The chicks were then flown to Scotland and released on the island of Rum, right next to Canna. At that time, no one could have anticipated how successful the reintroduction was going to be.
Overall in Scotland, there's probably about 200 at this present time.
And how many of those are on Canna?
Well, they have two pair here. They've been here since probably the late 80s and probably came from Rum and moved across to Canna. And they've been fairly successful since then. One pair better than the other pair, as you always get.
And is there anywhere here that we can see signs of sea eagles today?
Yes, there is. Just in the cliff up behind me, we should hopefully see some signs anyway.
Cliff. That sounds ominous.
In this exposed terrain, finding any sign of the sea eagles isn't easy. We're going to check a recently vacated nest to see if they're eating well enough to survive. What I hadn't bargained on was the nest being halfway up this cliff.
You do a lot of this, do you?
Occasionally. Not too much these days, but in the old days I did quite a lot.
You know I've never done this before, don't you?
Aye, I know.
I'd like you to know that I'm quite liking it. But mostly I'm hating it. This is not the best fun I've ever had. Let me assure you. Oh, I'm here. I'm here. Oh, I'm so pleased. Right. Jolly good. Okay. I have to say, right, at first sight, this does not look like a bird's nest as such to me. Is this standard issue, just a flattened platform of debris?
This is it, yes, It's quite often it's built up at the beginning of the season. It looks a lot better. You know, there's a lot of sticks and seaweed and various other things. And then it lines it a little bit with heather and various things like that. By the end of the season, of course, the birds have been here, you know, for several months. Right. So by the time they're finished with this, it's as you see it now.
What is that? That's a jawbone.
This is a jawbone, yes. It's not human, I can say, but what this is, it's herbivore.
Yeah.
And that's a small lamb.
It's a lamb, right?
A small lamb.
Because that is the kind of prey you kind of, in your mind's eye, that's what I think about, something like a seagull taking.
Yes, that's right. There's a tendency that, you know, obviously the seagulls are not liked by shepherds, etc., because they are taking lamb. And in some of these areas, financial schemes have been set up to try and offset some of these costs. But here on Cana, looking at the actual dietary requirements of the eagle, there's only something like 0.2% of lamb amongst everything that it eats is eaten. Now that's not a large amount.
We know from the nest the eagles are feeding well enough, which promises well for their future. But still no sign of the birds. Until, finally... Just how big is that bird that we're looking at?
Well, it's the largest bird of prey we've got in the UK, and that's an 8-foot wingspan approximately. So that is huge, and it's often described as a flying barn door, you know.
Well, isn't it the size of a door in somebody's house, isn't it?
It's very big, but it's also very broad, a very, very broad wing. So they're absolutely massive birds, and there's different sizes between male and female. You find the female is a much bigger bird than the male.
That was amazing.
That was great.
I didn't think we'd see anything, to be honest.
Well, I was a bit dubious myself about it, but I'm really happy that it's come by for us.
The sea eagle chicks aren't the only Norwegians to make their home in Scotland. The Hebrides were ruled by the Vikings for over 250 years. In fact, the Gaelic name for the islands, Inishgal, means the islands of the foreigners. But the Norwegians here today haven't come to conquer, they've come to work. I'm hitching a ride north on a boat based here in the west coast of Scotland. It's operated by a Norwegian company who farm Atlantic salmon here, mostly for the UK market. The boat's skipper, Roy Willie Hansen, doesn't seem to mind being far from Norwegian shores.
It's quite interesting to see how the people and the coast are very much the same. People living near the coast seem to me like being very much the same people.
So this place, this coastline makes you feel at home?
Yeah, it does, actually. Yeah, I feel home.
Age-old Viking bonds run deep among the seafaring folk here. But the modern world is forcing change on these islands. Try taking a trip out to the Isle of Skye and you'll see concrete signs of progress. The bridge reaching out to one of Scotland's most famous islands has only been here since 1995. It's just a thin ribbon of road, but it's a permanent connection to the mainland. It begs the question, is Skye an island anymore? Members of the local community own and run a ferry further down the coast for those who prefer going over the sea to Skye. Alice Roberts is one of them.
Well, the boats have changed over the years, but this journey still connects back to the age-old tradition of the Isles when everything, people, goods, animals, had to come across on the water. I'm meeting Donald John MacLeod, who brought the mail across this narrow stretch of water for 50 years. He's witnessed firsthand how Skye has changed since the arrival of the bridge.
When an island is connected by a causeway or a bridge, the island changes. An island community, they're dependent on each other, but now you can get off it 24/7. Go to wherever in the world.
And you used to bring the mail over to Skye?
Yes, I did. Up to the Second World War, very few houses had telephones, so everything came by mail.
So it sounds like your boat was
a bit of a lifeline for people
Oh
in
yes,
Skye.
it was at that time, absolute lifeline, yes.
And how important are boats now, do you think?
Tourist attractions.
This stretch of water wasn't just a lifeline for communication, it was once essential for industry too. Running any kind of enterprise on the Isles used to rely on sea trade, and 200 years ago, the business on the boats was booming. The island looks so unspoiled. Hard to believe that the smog of pollution once hung over these shores, and that an entire industry was born and died here, all based on the stuff under my feet. This is brown gold, seaweed. As strange as it seems, there are chemicals in this that 200 years ago were crucial to the glass-making industry. To make glass, you need soda ash. Until the late 1700s, Britain's main source for that was Spain. But then came war with Napoleon, and all imports stopped. Shattering news for the glass industry. Except you can also get soda ash from burning seaweed, and that was the start of the brown gold rush. The beaches of the Western Isles are abundant in the seaweed or kelp. When burned, it produces soda ash. So 200 years ago, these quiet shorelines were ablaze with activity. The remains of the workers' cottages can still be seen. As the kelp industry boomed, they housed entire families that depended on the seaweed for their livelihood. Whatever the weather, they had to be outdoors, cutting, carrying, and burning it. I want to know what life was like in the early 1800s for the people of Skye working the kelp. So I'm meeting historian Donald William Stewart on this desolate day.
It was a grim task, arduous work, really. You'd be there knee-deep in freezing cold salt water for most of the summer months, sewing this stuff up. Then you'd have to drag it or haul it or carry it. Back-breaking work up the top of the shore where you'd clean it, you'd dry it. Then you put it over pits and you burnt it.
And is this men and women working?
Well, the women apparently did the burning, if you like. It was quite a skilled job. You couldn't burn it too fast. The men, well, they took up kelp irons and beat this molten seaweed into blocks, cooled down into bluish lumps, which were then broken up into chunks and taken down to the south.
They're ruins now, but around 200 years ago, these coastal houses were hives of activity. Piles of seaweed burning along the shore, covering the islands in thick smoke, visible for miles out to sea.
20,000 people across the Western Islands were involved every summer in this really grim, filthy, dirty work. Just as much a product of the Industrial Revolution as the black coal smoke which is belching out of the chimneys in Glasgow and Birmingham and Manchester.
Crofters and tenants along this coastline were forced into cutting kelp by landlords quick to cash in. Rents were raised and emigration was stopped by an act of Parliament to force more and more workers into the industry. Tenants here in Sushnish saw little of the profits. Their landlord, meanwhile, Lord MacDonald of Slate, was making enough cash to turn his house into a castle.
The landlords owned the shoreline. They owned everything that grew on the shore. That included seaweed. And they were really raking it in off the kelp. At its height, he was making anything up to £20,000 a year off kelp. That's well over £1 million in today's money. Just an astonishing amount of money to make off seaweed.
Some kelp cutting continued right up to the 20th century, but those early boom years were short-lived. When the Napoleonic Wars ended, cheap soda ash from Europe flooded into Britain again. The glass industry didn't need Scottish seaweed, and so the landowners no longer needed the kelp cutters. Now almost nothing remains of the time when the brown gold rush boomed on the Western Isles.
The islands of the Inner Hebrides come in all shapes and sizes. Sometimes it's hard to tell if an island is habitable or if it's just a lump of rock. There's one such rock that's been the centre of dispute for over half a century and has garnered an almost mythical status amongst sailors.
Very few people have even seen the island of Rockall. Fewer still have actually stood on it. But I'm on my way to meet a man who has.
The reason so few people have been to Rockall is because it's all the way out here, 230 miles west of the Outer Hebrides. Just 27 metres across, it's the rocky remains of an extinct volcano. Ex-SAS paratrooper and adventurer Tom McLean has not only stood on Rockall. In 1985, he lived on Rockall for 40 days and 40 nights.
Jura, Jura, this is Rockall, Rockall, Rockall. Nice to see you. Come on board. Come on in.
Tom lives in Scotland now. I'm curious to know how on earth he even got on the rock in the first place.
Great climbers would find it difficult because it's so slippy. You've got a half an inch of guana all over it, so you're climbing in all that muck, and it's very difficult. I had to have the crampons on and go very careful. A big wave came and swept my little boat away, and the guy was hanging on with a rope and pulled me right off down into the sea, and I broke my ankle.
You broke your ankle?
I was still up there for 40 days with a broken ankle.
How did you cope with that?
Well, I'll just elevate the limb and keep it tightly bound and keep it cool.
Did you have to take everything that you would need for the duration of the stay?
I took all the food, the batteries. I had a wind generator. Even then, I made my own power. You know.
Do you ever waking up in the middle of the night thinking you're still there? Does it come back to you?
No, I think of it sometimes. Yeah. It's just one of my adventures.
It was in 1955, 30 years before Tom got involved, that the UK formally laid claim to Rockall, primarily to stop the Soviets using it to spy on British missile tests in the Outer Hebrides. Other countries have never challenged the sovereignty Britain established over the rock itself. What's contentious is what lies beneath. The seabed may be rich in minerals and oil. That's why Tom stepped into the dispute with his purpose-built bivouac.
I want to reaffirm our British rights to the island. We already own it, but I want to reaffirm by staying more than 21 days.
To no avail. According to the UN Convention on the Sea, squatting on Rockall doesn't bring any rights to what's in the sea around it. In 1997, despite Tom's solo effort, Britain took the plunge and signed up to that convention. The potential riches around tiny Rockall are still up for grabs. Britain, Ireland, Iceland and the Faroe Islands all claiming a case.
Do you think anybody else will ever repeat it as a solo adventure?
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think they will. They probably don't want to. But no, it's great, Rockall.
International disputes over territorial waters can depend on where a country's coastline starts and stops, and how long it is. It's not only governments who are interested in the length of the coastline. It's also handy to know if you're walking round it. On a particularly wiggly part of Scotland's shore, Nick Crane's pacing out a very perplexing puzzle.
There's a question that crops up a lot on coast. Just how long is the British coastline? A simple question, and you'd think there'd be a simple answer, but you'd be wrong.
If you just zoom out for a moment and really look at the coastline, especially here in the west of Scotland, and see all those inlets and wiggles, suddenly you're faced with an intriguing problem.
Remarkably, figuring out the precise length of our coastline has led to a whole new branch of maths, which affects our lives in all kinds of surprising ways, even our mobile phones. What's going on here, Tony?
Well, I think we should start, Nick, by making some measurements.
Do you want to give me one of those to carry?
That'd be excellent. Thanks very much.
How are we going to do these measurements?
Well, we're going to place these on either side of two rocks.
Dr. Tony Mulholland is a mathematician from Strathclyde University. He's here to show me that measuring the length of the coastline all depends on the length of your ruler.
Measuring devices.
Excellent.
Having walked a good bit of our coast, I don't fancy measuring the whole thing. Instead, we're going to concentrate on a tiny bit. But if you think that makes it easy, think again.
OK.
We've placed two tripods 14 metres apart. That's the direct distance between them. But it doesn't take into account how wiggly the actual shoreline is. That's what we're going to measure. Firstly, with a 2-metre rule.
So that's 1, 2, that's 13, 14, and let's call that 15.
OK.
So, measuring our bit of coastline with a 2-metre rule, we get a length of 30 metres. So now we're going to do the same measurement with a 1-metre rule.
16, 17, I'm not very good at counting over 50, 21, 22, 28, 29, 34, 50, 51.
51, excellent.
Amazingly, with a smaller 1-metre rule, the coastline now measures 51 metres. Because we're getting further into those nooks and crannies. The coast is getting longer. Now, finally, with a 1/2-metre rule. That's if we can get there before the tide comes in.
I never thought I'd see one of Britain's biggest mathematical brains measuring the coastline with a wooden ruler. 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68.
You're in the home straight now.
I'm concentrating. 94.
Don't let me put you off.
Up there, 95, 19, 120. Just an amphibious ruler. 121.
Judge the tides.
123.
So, the 1/2-metre rule gives us a reading of nearly 64 metres, the longest yet, and much more than our original straight-line distance.
So the difference between the straight line, which is 14,
yes,
and the 50-centimetre ruler of 64, even I can work that out, it's 50 metres, isn't it?
It's almost 4 times the distance.
This is the extraordinary result. As your ruler gets shorter and shorter, your measurement gets longer and longer. Mathematicians realised you could keep going like this forever. And discovering that created a whole new branch of mathematics. Fractals. A fractal is a pattern which reveals greater and greater complexity as you zoom in. It was actually the endless complexity of Britain's wiggly coastline that inspired Polish-born mathematician Benoit Mandelbrot to invent fractal mathematics. Mandelbrot realised that instead of using a ruler, he could measure wiggliness by giving it a number between 1 and 2. He called this the fractal dimension.
Okay, Nick, let me try and see if I can explain this to you in more simple terms. Here we have a straight line.
Yeah.
And this has got a fractal dimension of 1.
Okay.
Here's a more wiggly line, and we'd give this a fractal dimension somewhere between 1 and 2. This might have a fractal dimension of 1.3.
So fractal dimension's a bit like a wiggliness factor.
Absolutely. That's really just giving you a measure of how wiggly the coastline is. So I think we'll have a look at the map of the British Isles.
Okay.
Now, I'm from this part of Britain. I love this coastline, and this is very wiggly, and I would give this a fractal dimension of somewhere about 1.3.
And what about somewhere, I mean, I grew up in Norfolk down here, which has got a very smooth curve.
Absolutely, and so you can see somewhere like here, it's got a fractal dimension nearer 1.05, almost down at 1. And that's borne out by the coastline. So visually, I think we can see this number relates to this ruggedness of the coastline.
Giving a number to how wiggly your shore is might seem academic, but the length of a country's coast is vital for international disputes about boundaries. Everybody's got to agree how they are measured, so countries can't cheat, using a smaller ruler to make their border appear longer. As it happens, the west coast of Scotland is the second most wiggly coastline in the world. The prize for the wiggliest goes to Norway.
I've seen the light, Tony. Fractal dimensions give a numerical value to this seemingly chaotic coast. But what have they got to do with that?
Ah, well, you've got your car radio or your radio at home, a long aerial, excellent reception. We want the same thing for the phone, but we don't want a long aerial. So what's the solution? We want to take this long aerial and cram it and squidge it and make it as wiggly as possible, give it as high a fractal dimension as possible, and put it in the phone.
OK, Tony, I get the maths, but the reason I've been clambering up and down rocks all day is to find out the length of the British coastline. How long is it?
Well, the Ordnance Survey, they'll quote a figure of just over 11,000 miles for mainland Britain. It has to be borne in mind that is measured with a ruler that's 10 centimetres long.
A hypothetical ruler?
A hypothetical ruler. It's using satellite imagery and digitised images.
But there's no limit to how short a ruler can be.
The length of the British coastline is infinite.
I didn't want to hear that.
I'm sorry?
The coast is infinite.
I'm leaving our wiggly coastline behind, continuing my journey into the far north. I'm heading further than coast has been before. Beyond Muckleflugga, the furthest tip of the Shetland Islands, I'm on my way to discover what island life is like far from mainland Britain. Adrift in the vast Atlantic, the Faroe Islands. My final landfall. It takes at least 12 hours to get here by boat, so I've taken the express route to the Faroes by plane. What a way to catch my first glimpse of these mystical islands. Oh yeah, look at that, that is Lord of the Rings. It's Middle-earth. The Faroes are 18 separate islands with nearly 700 miles of coastline, home to fewer than 50,000 people, who are never more than 3 miles from the sea. The landscape's staggeringly beautiful, sheer cliffs, rugged mountains, and stunning sea stacks. It's not surprising then that landing on these islands is pretty hair-raising. The gateway to the Faroe Islands is this tiny strip of tarmac and an airport many believed could never be built in such wild terrain.
We are definitely in the Faroe Islands, and I know that, apart from anything else, because I can't understand the name of the airport building.
We may be a long way from home, but we've more connections with these islands than you'd think. This airport was built by the British Army. In 1940, the Germans invaded Denmark and Norway. Britain feared the Germans were aiming to occupy the Faroes to use as a key U-boat base, so decided to get in there first.
On April the 11th, 1940, Winston Churchill announced that the Danish territory of Faroe was under British control. He said, "We shall shield the Faroe Islands from all severities of war and establish ourselves there conveniently by sea and air, until the moment comes when they will be handed back to Denmark, liberated from the foul thraldom into which they've been plunged by German aggression."
An airport was essential for the British military, but building one in this mountainous terrain seemed impossible. After several failed surveys, British Army engineers found a spot flat enough for a runway. Just. The airport is as much a lifeline now as in the Second World War. But that's not all the soldiers left behind.
When the British troops arrived on Vagar, they found just a handful of vehicles and almost no roads. By the time they left, They built an entire roads network, and they left behind 300 vehicles like this one for the locals. That must have been just about one each.
Tally-ho. OK, in 1940, the Faroe Islands had 28,000 inhabitants, but very limited resources. 8,000 British servicemen arriving were bound to make an impact.
Over there, on the flat ground of the modern village, that was the camp. So Nissen huts, canteens, barracks, all the paraphernalia of camp life. This is the site of a huge gun emplacement. These are the ammunition stores. So you get a sense from the size of these just how big the guns were. The men here were guarding something pretty important.
This inauspicious building, barely touched for 60 years, could hold a clue as to what that importance was.
It's a garage now. The usual petrol and diesel fumes and tools and things. Up there, a couple of empty offices. Don't know what they're for. But locals hereabouts will tell you this was a sector headquarters for the Battle of the North Atlantic. And look, there's Norway, there's Iceland, and there's the vast black emptiness of the North Atlantic.
Although operations in the Atlantic were monitored from the Faroes, the troops stationed here didn't see much direct action. But the story of the British occupation isn't about buildings. There's something less tangible, but much stronger. There was a meeting of minds, island people encountering and understanding other islanders, and some very special relationships blossomed. At the site of the old officers' mess, I'm meeting local historian Mina Reinert with Ragnhild Thomason, who was only 19 when the troops arrived.
What was it like to suddenly have hundreds or thousands of British troops here, British men here? What did it do to the atmosphere of the island?
Ja. Hvordan var det å ha alle disse rævlige nekker tusentalls soldater her?
Det var deiligt.
That's wonderful, she says.
What about, special friendships, with the troops?
Ja, badjan som hadde viner. Og der kom inn til der og så spela kort og forskjellige sånne. Og ta det ångest. Så fortalte jeg forskjellige fra dem.
Was there anyone who was special to you?
Det noe som tog dem til vel, når vi snakker om Ronny.
Ja, Ronny. Bare Ronny.
Ronny.
This is Ronny, Ragnhild's fiancé it was at the time. They were together for 1 year and she got a baby by him. But he left before the baby was born. He went to France. He was an ambulance driver and he was killed in D-Day.
Oh dear.
The British and Faroese cemented their relationship in other ways too. The Faroese fishing fleet played a vital role in feeding the British during wartime shortages. In fact, a fifth of all the fish we ate was landed by the Faroese fishing fleet, often at great risk. In March 1942, 21 Faroese fishermen from Vagar were killed by a German U-boat, leaving their children fatherless.
The children of the village, of course, they looked upon the British soldiers as kind of father figures.
How strange for these young British men that had gone away to war to find themselves cast in the role of
fathers.
of being fathers for these kids.
Yeah, but they were very good to them. They always brought them chocolates and things, and took care of them. People remember the war. They remember what went on here. They remember the kindness of the soldiers. And I suppose the soldiers also remember the kindness of the Faroese people here. They helped them and they helped each other,
Many of the soldiers were from Scottish regiments, probably with some sympathy for the rigours of island life. Some wholeheartedly embraced the traditional struggle to survive. and that included whaling. Hunts like this, where boats herd whales into the shore, only died out in the Scottish Islands about 100 years ago. On the Faroe Islands, they still hunt whales today. The community wants to preserve the tradition of handling boats is a part of everyday life here, but there's one day a year when the Faroese really get to show their mettle. The national holiday, St. Olav's Day, July 29th. The rowing races are the highlight of the festival, with pride and prizes at stake, and the whole town turns out to watch. Well, if they can peer through the sea mist.
My name is Runa, and I'm the captain for the girls' rowing team for Torshavn Rowing Club. We always eat together before the race. If we lose or if we win, it's exciting no matter what.
If we win this race and the championship, we got 4 trophies.
Yeah, we're going out after the race to party. It's a boat for 6 rowers, and it's a traditional Faroese boat. And in the competition, it's the smallest. You also have boats for 8 or 10 persons.
Champions are triumphant again. They celebrate their win in a way that's familiar the world over. Youngsters who practice their English watching satellite TV. The Faroes are remote, but not isolated. Resident.
The thing I notice right away about the outside is the grass roof.
Grass on top of the roofs, yeah, grass on top of the houses, which is a very common way of building houses in the Faroes. You have an abundance of grass all around. And when you then put the grass on top, you would have also a very quiet house, fairly well insulated house, and also the weight of the grass, you might say, hold the roof on top during winter storms. Come inside.
Okay.
Take a look in the kitchen.
All right.
Yeah, welcome inside.
They may have had an abundance of grass, but with no trees on the island, wood was in short supply. The ancient timber in this house had to come hundreds of miles across the sea from Norway.
The house itself arrived here in late year 1000 probably, and came as a prefabricated house from Norway.
Really? So they were doing flat pack?
Yeah, they built it on location. They only had probably the sails to transport, so it was very important to them that they didn't transport more than necessary, but everything necessary in order to have a finished house once they arrived at its destination. Up through this door here, takes us about 900 years back in time.
No way. So this has been standing for 1,000 years?
Yeah, close to it, yeah.
How does it feel, and knowing that your family have been living here generation after generation since 1557? I mean, talk about a family home.
Yeah, definitely is a family home, and most of their lives have been lived in this room. I've always lived here, so it's not something you go around thinking about all the time. But it is, of course, it is special also for us, and yeah, it's a privilege. We feel it's a privilege.
The privilege of being an island people. And for over 1,000 years, the Faroese have toiled hard just to cling on to this precarious land. The daily chore of getting enough to eat. The isolation, yet kinship, of a tiny group of islands so far from the rest of the world. This really is life on the edge.
If you've got a romantic idea about island life, then a visit to the Faroe Islands, especially on a day like today with the rain and the low cloud and the mist, then you get a sense of the bigger picture. It is starkly beautiful, but it's a struggle as well. There is a good life to be had here, but it's a life made of tough decisions, hard choices. It's about being pragmatic. And perhaps more than anything else, it's about being prepared to take full advantage of everything that the land and the sea and the sky have to offer.
Next time, we're going even further.
That globe on that little island marks the start of the Arctic Circle.
In Norway, there's no getting away from those Vikings. And we discover our surprising connection to the incredible landscape of the fjords.
As an amateur geographer, this is one of the most exciting days of my life!
Join us for